Dugout Nation, welcome to the Dugout CEO podcast. Excited about our guest today, Brett Carroll. Drafted in 2004 by the Florida Marlins, he made his major league debut in 2007 and played for 11 years, 6 of those in the major leagues. His first MLB home run was off the big unit, Randy Johnson, and Brett's desire and passion is to help develop and impact the next generation of student athletes by making a difference in their lives both on and off the field. Brett is married to his wife, Heather, and has 2 daughters, Bailey and Georgia. Brett, welcome to the Dugout CEO podcast.
Casey, good to be on here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Fired up to have you. I think we met years ago. I believe you were just transitioning out of being a player into what's next. And it's just super cool to see your journey and what you have accomplished since. So maybe tell Dugout Nation a little bit about you as a player and a baseball guy to start.
Well, we won't speak too long on the player side of things. No, it was, I from Knoxville, Tennessee, played my high school baseball at Bearden High School, played college baseball at Middle Tennessee State. After my third year there, I was drafted by what used to be the Florida Marlins, and then kind of started a journey in pro ball for the next 11 years. Played for a handful of different teams. I got to play for Team USA. Baseball really took me all over the world. Played some winter ball. And kind of was up and down the big leagues from 2007 to 2000. My last year there, 2012. So fourth outfielder, up and down, spot start, taught me a lot about different angles of the game. And but quite the journey, just obviously all the relationships you meet and be in different clubhouses, different cities. I mean, it was such a journey, but gosh, it went by quick. It's like I joke that it's like living like Benjamin Button, right? It's kind of everything backwards. Like you experience a lot of like, whoa, this is in your 20s. And then into my 30s, my last year, I think I was 31 or 32. 2014 was my last year. So married, I got 2 little girls, 8 and 7, which was a great timing of transition that allowed me to a little bit more of a father and what I'm kind of doing now.
Let's talk about the baseball stuff. I was watching the Braves play the other day, and I think it was Grissom, their shortstop. He played in the big leagues on Saturday night, and then my wife had a event for the Gwinnett Stripers on Sunday, and we get there at noon, and he's playing for the Stripers at noon, and he was playing in the big leagues Saturday night. You kind of had that journey a little bit.
Absolutely.
What is that like? I mean, that's
I mean, I don't know if you ever get used to it fully. I mean, when I got called up in 2007, I was drafted in 2004. I was not necessarily a fast track prospect guy. But I think I started to become a little bit on the organization's radar after a year or 2. But really just kind of some doors open that I couldn't have really opened. I just happened to was in the right spot. And, but I got called up pretty quick. And if I'm honest, I wasn't fully ready for that type stage at that moment, but you're like, okay, let's go. As a competitor, you're like, bring it on. But just all the newness of that and you're walking out your dream, but I remember after the first couple of weeks up, did okay, kind of scuff a little bit, which is kind of normal your first time up. I remember them having to get a pitcher to come up. So my spot was was up because of having options on the 40 man. And I got sent down. I'll never forget that first time. Like they all left to go fly out, and I had to stay there for the other night. And I thought, I remember, did I just miss my shot, right? Because you hear all the stories, right? You get one shot, and if you miss that opportunity, you may never get it again. So I thought, I may never get this again. So you start to really wrestle with a lot of different emotions and uncontrollables. But thankfully, I got back up at the end of that year. And but I can definitely relate. Sitting on the bench and watching a starter go for a certain amount of pitches that you realize, okay, we're going to be thin on pitching, and I didn't even get a chance to perform. Earn your way on, right? You hear that all the time in the world, right? And this is a discredit to pitching. Our pitchers, it was just like we had one particular starter that a fabulous starter, just would throw a lot of. Every count was 3-2. It was all so. I remember sitting there, it's happened at least 2 or 3 times where I'm looking to my left, looking to my right, and I've got Aaron Boone and Wes Helms, and those guys ain't going down to the minor leagues. You're looking around, and you're like, okay, I'm the 24-year-old that is I'm going to go down again. So those are hard, right? When you're just like, man, you don't even have a chance to do it to change somebody's mind. It's just a business decision. So just learning the business side of things and trying to remove it from such personal, right, is an adjustment period for sure.
How do you do that now as a business owner? You're not always in control of everything that happens. And in
Sure.
that, you're in control of a few things, but not everything. How were you able to ride the wave of the ups and the downs?
That's a great question. And honestly, I'm still learning that. I feel like I've got a better grasp on it now than I did 2016. Just understanding kind of the culture of youth sports, culture, travel ball, how college game has changed now. I mean, in 2020, we launched a postgraduate program it's been amazing to be a part of. But in regards to the youth and everything, like I remember really an aim was not to feel so transactional. And I don't know if that was my own personal kind of junk you're bringing into where you experience so much of that in professional baseball, right? Which is normal. That's the world we live in. I mean, especially in sports, you perform, you get rewards. If you don't, opportunities get lost. So just wanting to try to more, because of that kind of parlayed into travel ball. It was like, oh, we got to get rid of this kid. And he's like, well, one second, he hadn't got any puberty yet. I mean, we don't even know what he's going to look like right now. Yeah, there's some early kids on that maybe this is a little bit above them, or maybe they need to play a little lesser speed. But so I think early on that kind of, I wasn't out just to have these world beating teams and that could just dominate all the time for my own ego. It wasn't about that. It was about, okay, how do we invest kind of these, give them a healthier perspective of the game, character mentorship and all that. But sometimes that kind of bites you too, because I mean, you want your teams to be competitive. You want them to give their best. You definitely want to acquire talented kids that really want it. But there's a rub there, no doubt. I mean, just transactional versus kind of the transformational. There's two tensions there that you're constantly kind of living in, trying to make best decisions with your coaches and myself included. So,
because transactional might be all right, wins and losses.
Sure. Well, not even just that. It's just like, game changers now entered into the youth, right? So, which is always completely skewed and subjective. Either, I mean, who's scoring the game, but if you're like, oh, Johnny's hitting $150, but you can see that Johnny's got some physical abilities, he just is not fully developed yet. So, really stressing early on, especially the youth level, the development side, like that is what that's about. So much of what we do, but it's like that's what they first have to learn is man, are they enjoying themselves? Are they having fun? Are they learning baseball? And how can we put them in a healthy environment where they don't feel like every mistake they make is like the world's falling apart and that mom and dad are upset with me all weekend? And it was just that part is hard for me to watch, just because it's like, no. I mean, I have two kids and surely I want them to do well. And I get it from a parent perspective. You don't want them to experience failure. You don't want them to stink. You don't want them to feel rejection. But it's a reality. And how do we work through those spaces? I think that's the biggest thing. And it's not easy, no doubt, from both parent or player side.
How do you teach them, the people that you lead, to work through failure?
Well, I mean, I think it's again, obviously age appropriate, and there's kind of progression to that, right? Where their brains can fully understand more. But it's holding them to a standard and being accountable. Like there is a certain standard that we have, certainly. Like, you're going to play hard. Like, we're going to give effort. Like it's a gift to be out there. God's given you ability to be out there, or ability, something about like you're out here, have a uniform on. We're going to give it our best. Like there's no question about that. And if you're not, then let's go do something else. But then also having some compassion and grace towards the kids that are trying, that just, they're goofy, right? I mean, they're early on, especially, and like that. That's just that, those two tensions. I think you can coach from that place. And I think and there's some great dads and great moms that are, whatever sport they're coaching and helping with, do a great job of that. But I just think, what's the bigger purpose? Like honestly, as adults, do we fully get wrapped up in the Burger King championship that my 8-year-old won? And that, yes, I got to post and be proud of. That's great. Just like play to win the trophy. That's awesome. But I just think with kids, their viewpoint of the game and are they cared for is it just wrapped in performance at age? You know what I mean? Is that like, because I hate them to experience such performance pressure at that age, because they got God willing, if they continue to play whatever sport, baseball in itself, I mean, it's such a game of failure. It's going to kick you in your teeth every day. And are we setting them up in the right framework that goes, oh, you made an error, you're out, or oh, you struck out, you stink. Oh, your batting average is this, you're out. So it's just, we got to just having some 30,000, view of some perspective, I think could help everybody. So.
So your coaches and the teams that you have, how do you use that perspective as you run your business?
Well, I mean, I've got great guys and gals. We've got a softball team, and just trying to communicate to them. I feel like we're on the same page on that. I mean, again, we all get emotional. Like, I can sound completely hypocritical because I'm competitive. I want to. I mean, I love. I mean, winning is fun. I mean, it's no. I mean, you want to be successful at everything you do, and you pursue excellence. But just communicating that and just trying to stay on the same page. I mean, it's a challenge for sure because you want to empower them to do I want them to coach the way they want to coach, but also just saying, like, let's look at big picture here. Like, you can coach hard, but also coach with love. Like, coach both. Let the kid know you care, and also you're going, hey, I know you can do better than this. Like, and is it an effort issue? Is it an attitude issue? Is it, hey, do we get a few more reps? I mean, but again, you don't need to ask your 9, 10-year-old to be out there training like Tiger Woods in the game of baseball every single day. Okay. Yeah. Well, Tiger Woods made it. Okay, great. There's casualties along there too. I mean, I don't mean that like that. I just mean like there's something that gives up, so what is important? I mean, what's the bigger picture? So yeah, it's a challenge.
Why do you think it is?
Exactly.
Yeah. I have, you have 7, 8-year-olds. I have 1 and 2-year-olds. So they're not quite in sports yet.
Yeah.
So I haven't really felt this yet, but why do you think it is that a lot of parents are, I don't know if it's over emotional or over wrapped up in their kids' performance, or even business owners? They're over wrapped up in their performance of their teams or their employees or their results. Like, everybody feels like they have this tension. Do you see that or not?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I think it's first is how we're hardwired and made. Like, I don't think we're designed to just, settle for mediocrity or just not pursue excellence and not, like I said, give what abilities and have passion behind what you're doing and enthusiasm. I think it's with, like with anything, right? A good thing becomes a God thing. It can become a bad thing. So it's just the posture of your heart about what is ultimate, and nothing wrong with wanting to do well. Nothing wrong with see your kids succeed. I don't want to see my kids have kind of dabbled in a little bit different things. Like, sure, I want them to do well, but like, I'm also going, okay, what are the teachable moments in between the failure? That's the good stuff, right? The disappointment, the rejection, the embarrassment. I mean, that's the stuff to really mold and shape that are going to give them life when they get to 30 and 40, right? And they might be in as much counseling. So, but it's not at all that I don't think that the affections and excitement are wrong by any means. It's sometimes we're just miss our target a little bit, right? And we kind of aim at different things to where, okay, I need to take a step back here. Is this am I so wrapped up in this that is this my identity that I'm worried about, or is this there? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's really kind of the core foundational thing is kind of an identity, can be an identity struggle. So it's kind of weighty. Yeah, that's a tough question, but it's a good question, and it's the right question because it needs to be asked and considered.
Had a former announcer on the other day, Phil Van Horn, former Baseball Tonight guy. He goes, "Are we really going there?" I go, "Yeah, I just asked you that. Let's do it." Yeah. And I don't think I've ever cut any parts of any interview, so we're just going to go with it sometimes. But I think that is a lot of people. They keep things on the surface level, whether it's in baseball or it's in business, and we got to get down deep and we got to hit people where it matters, which is in their heart. And I think that's really cool. And seeing what you've been able to do for your players is super special. And building your program, you got this thing going in 2016. From then until now, what were some of the home runs that you hit as a business and some of the things that you did? You're like, wow, that was a really good decision. I want, other people, if they're a business owner or a leader, to really get something from me there.
Well, that's a great question. I've had some great mentors that have also who have been down the road a little bit in this ahead of me that helped give me some good advice that allowed me maybe to avoid some pitfalls from a business standpoint, right? Because I remember talking to a close friend and they just said, make sure you're kind of your ministry, right? Your passion towards what you're wanting to do, maybe kind of change the landscape in some areas, matches a business model. I thought that was great advice, right? 'Cause I think you can, like a fireworker, you can get all excited on emotion and all that, but then like, does it work, right? I mean, because this is a for-profit business. This is how I feed my family along with the rest of our staff and coaches and how we keep the lights on. But I think it took some time, and again, we don't nail it all the time by any means. And but like I think just people I think coming around now to seeing, okay, the big picture travel ball, like, man, we want man, every kid we come in here, man, dream of getting to the big leagues, like go for it. Like I couldn't be forever grateful for those moments that I've had in my career. Or you want to get to high school and play really good, awesome, do that, let's go do that, like, or college, whatever. But there's just that progression, that stepping stone, right? And I think, as you probably saw, right, the kids that were like world beaters at 12 or 15 that had a mustache already and hit puberty closer than everybody and throwing gas and hitting tanks, and you're like, that kid's going to be drafted by the time he's 16, like, and some end up continuing to progress and some not, just kind of where they get. And there's no shame in that, but it's just the reality of just the progression of the long-term development. I feel like that's what we've tried to constantly stay true to, the bigger mission of helping these kids, especially since we predominantly work with, boys to teenagers to now college type kids. It's like the progression of what kind of man they're becoming, how they're handling adversity, how they're handling the stress of the game. Because the game parallels such life, right? I mean, it's broken and frustrating and awesome at the same time. I mean, think about you I'm not getting on a rant, but as a pitcher makes a great pitch down the middle that is on the corners and has some depth, has some good spin. You're like, as soon as you leave your finger, you're like, man, that's an out. And the guy lays out and puts a good swing on it and gets a hit, right, and breaks your heart. Or you make a pitch and you're like, that ball's getting crushed, and all of a sudden he swings right through it or pops it in the air. I mean, the parallel of the game of defeat and the comeback, I mean, that's just life. And so that's what part of I guess it sounds cliche, but the poetry that I've always loved about baseball.
I just keep hearing time is your friend. It's not your enemy.
Yeah.
It seems like this world, whether you're a business owner or you're a 12-year-old travel ball player, this world is always telling you you're behind schedule. You're not good enough. You have to be better. You're not going to make it. Just like you sitting in that dugout next to Aaron Boone, you're like, well, this is my chance. I guess I'm done. And that's not the way life is. And you have time, but why is it that everybody is in such a rush to accomplish something, whether it's your P&L or it's, getting it to the next level? Like, why do you think everybody is in such a rush?
Well, I just think it's what's in front of us all day, right? I mean, it's the social media we take all day, or TV. I mean, everything in the narrative in our world is going bigger, faster, stronger, which there's a component of that. I mean, we train athletes here. No doubt that the faster you can get, the stronger you can be, the better results you're gonna have in the field. I mean, it should be, right? But theoretically speaking, when you're talking about the current of our world where it just moves faster and faster and faster, I mean, it's been there from the beginning of time. And I have to catch myself sometimes because I'll just full transparent. I mean, I've got 2 girls, 8 and 9, and I would strongly encourage you this, although I know you're right in the thick of where you're just like survival mode right now. But just there's part where I've really recently kind of grieved a little bit more of not, because I essentially started a business in 2016, right when my second daughter was born. So, and we're just now got to somewhat of even ground with my first daughter, and I'm out of the game. I don't know what we're going to have the job in the future. Like, I mean, so I had to sacrifice time there on that end to get things rolling. But, I mean, but just slowing down the moments now, man, because especially men, right? Our brains we're always middle of the night, or okay, because I think again, we're hardwired right there. I mean, from the beginning, like if we go off the cuff here, I mean, like Adam in the garden was meant to build and cultivate. So there's in us, and we're just trying to figure out how to reconcile that better and to where it's still doing things in this world that are important, but also enjoying what's right in front of us too. And so I really have to make a conscious effort, because I mean, my whole business, my livelihood and communication runs off my phone. So like sometimes I want to punt this thing through the roof, because I'm like, hold on, I got it. Like it's robbing me of the time in front. So you're not going to slow the world down. It's not going to happen. It's going to keep going. No one's going to go, hey, you know what? We need to push pause and all of this. And honestly, if you think about it, aside from obviously, I know the casualties that were during COVID, but we've joked that like in those first few months, especially, I mean, as a small business owner, I'm like, I don't know if we'll make it through this, but I'm like, we're out when we're hanging with our neighbors more, we're talking to people more, because you didn't go anywhere. Like life pushed pause there that honestly, I was like, yes, we got to get back to work eventually. And but I thought there was the good of that was like, this is just kind of, we get to settle for a second, you know, at least
I kind of want to almost go back to that time
yeah,
where
but
it was a little bit more peaceful because there wasn't as much to do. And I was talking with Shea Hildenbrand, and he mentioned you just got to slow the game down.
yeah,
And Billy Burns, former big leaguer for the
yeah.
A's, probably played against Billy, Billy, he said the same thing. You have to slow the game down. How do you, I guess, slow the game down now? Yes, but you're a business owner. You got a family, you're a husband, you're a leader, you have employees. How do you slow life down now? Because you're right, life speeds up, but how do you slow yourself down?
I'm still working through that. I feel like I'm a little better than I have been, but you know, we'll talk to our players here, and from a psychology standpoint about, you know, the word win, right? Okay, everyone wants to win, right? That's great. But it's really I think the acronym for what's important now. So I can kind of relate that to, so from business, I think one of the blessings I've had is obviously the people I trust around me that I can delegate, that I can feel like, hey man, you're really good at that. I want you to go do that. You make that better. And yeah, I want to know what's going on, but like I want to empower them to do their thing. But then I think from a family standpoint too, when I'm at home, right, and work's pulling you away from home, but then when you're at work, you want to be at home. I mean, there's this constant wrestle inside, at least a man, that you just, and then here's the lie though. Then shame creeps in, right? Now you're like, suck, I'm a terrible guy, I'm dad, I'm mom, husband, I'm a terrible husband, father. And that's just not true either. It's not, it's a lie. Unless you're just on purposely just trying to just make everyone around you miserable. But man, that's a constant tension, like I've said. But I think in relation to baseball, times you're going really good, when you weren't worried about your performance, you weren't cared about your stats. Again, those things pull at you. I mean, I remember I just went down to my former college and talked to our players, and it's like, listen, I know it's hard because everything now is polarizing, everything's seen, everyone's highlight reels out there. So I think, I mean, I'm waiting for the people to post on their Instagram or TikTok, or I'm not on TikTok, but if it was, where they're like, depression set in, right? And they take a snapshot like, hey, life's not going good. Like, but people say that, right? Because it's only the highlight reel. And I think for me, it's like being able to see it for what it is. And I can just be faithful today, man. Just get up today, what's in front of me, be as best I can be at my job, employees. Then I go home, be as fight for presence with my kids, put my phone away for the next 2 hours I get with them, and just making a conscious effort. And then with my wife, I mean, and just building little steps like that. You know what? And then if I fail that day, you know, I'm going to do it again tomorrow. There's new mercy and grace. I'm going to start over. But it is a pull. I told those athletes at NTSU, is like, I had to make conscious effort depending on which stadium I was be. I remember specifically going to Atlanta Braves, their old stadium, and that huge jumbotrons in dead center field, right? And like, I had to make a conscious effort not to look, because I knew whatever my stats were or weren't, that could start to play mind games with me, right? Like, oh man, if I go 4 for 4 here, I may pump this up. And so I just, instead of just what's in front of me, is I just need to hit this baseball here. What's the situation? I need to move a runner, whatever I got to do. Like, does that make sense? Like, what's important now? What's the moment right here, you know? But I wish I would be something I go back on my career is not letting all the outside noise infiltrate my why. I played baseball. I got to big leagues because I wanted to get there and play against the best of the best. And I didn't even realize my first year in pro ball, when they put a paycheck in my locker, I was like, oh, we really do get paid to play. Like, it really, I mean, I don't mean that, it sounds, because I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but that was true. I mean, it was like $750, but I was like, this is amazing. I went to played a baseball game tonight. I got paid. Like, and then obviously it only got better from there if you kept going up. But it's like, I don't know. I guess just the purity of it was what was really amazing, you know? So,
well, outside the fact that you were bigger, faster, stronger than me, threw it harder, ran faster, I think the real reason why you probably made it to big leagues and I didn't was I was the guy staring at the center field scoreboard and saying, all right, I got to hit 4 for 4 today to get above the Mendoza line, right? And I don't even know if I played at a stadium that had a center field scoreboard. There was usually cow pastures out there or whatever. But I think that's really great advice. And I think that's really good for everybody. It's control the controllables and stay focused on what you have. And I think that's really important. And What would you say as you built your business, looking back at it, Brett, any learning lessons along the way that, anybody that's building whether it's a program or a business now that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I mean, to even your point, there's plenty of stadiums I played in that had barely any scoreboard, but every story is another story, right? I mean, like even the worst, every story leads to another story. And I think we can, as I've heard somebody say, we can navel gaze and be like, just a stink. And there's all those, and it's just not true. And so there's a better song, there's a better story to play over you. And for me, I think actually Marcus Simonis, who I know you've been always a good business guy that I've admired, that you've always, like I said, when we first hopped on here, your entrepreneurial spirit, I remember just kind of studying from afar, people, process, product. And I thought, man, that's really good. You care about people. You walk the process out to be as best you can be. And then I think the product speaks for itself. And that product for me, travel ball, and I hope all our teams win every term they play in, because winning is fun. But what are the greater lessons they're going to learn? Like what kind of person are they become? What kind of character are they developing? And then, I mean, and that's I think if your intentions, and I'm sure, I mean, not every family that's been here has been like, hey, this is a great experience. I mean, we've probably missed some, no doubt, but I can say that we've honestly just tried to take care of people, be honest with them too, and their kid about the great he does, but also the work he needs to do and elsewhere. And I think that's also too, because that's not a lot in this industry, right? I mean, it's get through them to the money, which again, nothing wrong with making money or living. You have to be, I mean, in order to keep the lights on, it needs to be successful in that area. But I think for me, it's just caring about people. What's your process like to do that? And then what's the product look like, and that can be subjective. I mean, we're not going to be, and my ego's not stroked on in the travel ball rankings that's out there on Twitter. Like if we're going to be recognized as the top, I don't care about that. I want it to be good. If it ends up being that, awesome. But I know our greater reward is kind of the invisible stuff. Maybe you not see a lot. Does that make sense? Like the things that your conversations you have with kids, or where you encourage that kid, or I mean, help a family that may off the field something going on. I mean, that's rankings on Twitter ain't going to do any of that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember our best day ever when we were running our baseball academies, and it was our best day ever revenue wise. And we had a giant camp and all that kind of stuff. But the best part of that day was after we closed down, and I had a talk with an instructor who just got released by the New York Mets.
Yeah.
Sat there in a bucket and just talked for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Been in here. Yeah.
And that was it. And it's so hard, especially back then, it was so hard for me to actually make time to do that 45-minute bucket talk.
Sure.
Because we were in a startup business, trying to figure out a way to make payroll, trying to build a business. I had all these goals that I had, but I just remember, wow, why don't I do more of that? And I've always tried to structure now my businesses of people first, process second. And just like,
and leave room for maybe those uninterrupted conversations that in turn blessed you too, right? You are a blessing to him, but then, I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, I think we're again created for that connection of just people to people, and we don't get that a lot these days, right? It's mostly going to text or an email, which is normal. That's fine. Again, I'm not being critical or judgmental. I just mean life is going so fast and we get swept up in it, but then we really are like, man, I just want to sit in front of somebody and be like, hey, man, how you doing? Like, how you really doing? Like, honestly, don't even give me the, hey, I'm good. No, okay, that's what's really going on, because I mean, I've been through some hard seasons. I mean, you go through hard seasons of business, you go through hard seasons as a dad, you go through hard seasons in marriage. I mean, I'm not wearing a cape. I find no freedom in pretending I do, so.
I like what you said earlier, Brett, around, blocking time, because often I work with entrepreneurs all day and it feels like they have something scheduled every minute of their day.
Yeah. It's like Wall Street. Yeah.
And I work with a lot of people where at the end of the day, they don't have that margin for an uninterrupted moment, whether it's family or friends or a client or unexpected something. And they walk into every meeting with a task list of what needs to be accomplished rather than focusing on people first. And that's been hard because I lived that way for years, and I've had to reprogram my mind there. So I really appreciate that. People first.
And listen, I just hope this is a safe space, because that's an ongoing process. Like I'm not arrived at that. I mean, it's just those reminders, because I know what feels like robs me versus what actually, so man, that was I'm glad that I'm enjoying this right now. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
so yeah,
it's great. Well, you got any, first, before I ask you if you got any chin music for us, anything that you believe in or that's contrarian, who do you get some chin music from back in the day that maybe brushed you back out of the batter's box? You're like, you know what? This guy just brushed me back.
yeah. Brian Wilson, Fear the Beard. He hit one up and in fact, I felt like Roger Dorn in this moment because it was like bottom of the ninth, we're playing at home, and I pinch hit. And I mean, that was a lot of my journey career, was like you spot start here and there off a lefty, and then you come in on a setup guy or a closer, and then your defensive replacement in right field. So it's like, again, like cry sour grapes, I know, but like it was that with me as a competitor, that's that you're like, man, you're trying not to believe any negativity, like I'm gonna get them, but then you're like, I mean, just the realities, the probabilities are you're in a tough spot there, especially the age I was up in the big leagues. But he got me down like 0-2. I mean, I didn't even sniff. I think I fouled a ball off, and he just let out a two-seamer or something, run up and in on me, and I ducked out of the way, hit me in the shoulder. I remember being like Roger Dorn, being like, let's go. So I was just, because I knew like I'm fighting. I mean, I'm scrapping here to just put the ball in play. Like this is, so, I mean, but there's been several guys. I mean, facing Chapman was quite an experience where, I mean, first two balls, they were literally on the black away that I took, but not because my eye was good. It was just because I didn't really see it. And then I was like, oh, I'm 2-0. I'm getting the head out here. I'm hitting a homer. Pinch hit. Why not? I mean, what's a bunt going to do? It's like, so, and I remember trying to be early, and I popped it up foul to the first baseman. So, I mean, but yeah, there's some guys that you face arms that in the moment of it, I think, and you talk about this, like, kind of goes back to your questions. I mean, and I don't know if it's even possible because it just feels like it's going fast in some sense, especially like myself, where you don't know how long you're going to be here. Like, but just there's times now I feel like I'll remember a story or a conversation with someone, and you're like, oh man, like I didn't even remember that conversation, or that was a cool moment. Like I got to experience that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but when you're in it, you're just, okay, next play, right? Next play. So, yeah, it's that. Yeah, I'd have to even think more about them. I know I've been hit several times. So
Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to find that Brian Wilson video and put it in the show notes for everybody. I'm sure it's out there.
I think there is one on YouTube that my wife said that when we started dating, she's like, you looked cute in it. I was like, oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I don't know what she was looking at, but it was literally, I was like hitting, and I turned. I mean, this is where I did not see it come running in on me. And it was firm. And I literally turned in, and it got me in my forearm. So like, I didn't turn away from it. I turned right into it. I mean, that thing, black and blue. And it was painful, but
well, at least you look cute in it,
exactly. I'm at the reminder of that, I'm gonna go home today. Hey, remember that video, like you said? No.
Well, you find it, you send it to me. We'll put it in the show notes for everybody else. So Brett, anything else you want to leave us with today?
Yeah. If you're, our academy here is located in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's bcathleticsnox.com. Our postgraduate program for if you're an 18, 19-year-old that's this year's committed or uncommitted 23 high school kid or junior college transfer, check out our postgrad website, college baseball, www.collegebaseball.com. Love to have a conversation with you if you want to continue playing.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you having me on. Take care.
Dugout Nation, what a great time with former big leaguer Brett Carroll. He shared some excellent tips to help you become an MVP at what you do. Here are the big three takeaways that I learned from Brett. I love the metaphor win. What's important now? When everything is important, nothing's important. Having the ability to figure out what's important now at any business life cycle is the key to making big wins. Don't be transactional, be transformational. Create a vision and inspire your team to become the best versions of themselves. It's not about the on-the-field wins, although they are important. Taking care of your people should be number one priority. If you focus on developing those you lead, the results will take care of themselves. Slow time down. Don't just focus on getting things done, but also enjoy what you're doing. It feels like most people are rushing through life from one thing to another, to one meeting to the next. Use your calendar wisely and be sure to underschedule and leave room for unexpected interruptions.